Good afternoon. Um, Today's video will be with the date of yesterday, and in a next video I will explain you why. This will be a reaction video because this thing that I found is exactly what happens to me all my life. What have happened to me all my life. Well, here's the video, and let's check it out.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Asperger's from the Inside. You're here with Paul. So I don't know if you've had this experience where you have an amazing, incredible idea and you share it with a group and then nothing happens.
The story of my life. Basically, 100% of the times I have an idea that I think is excellent. And when I share it with the group, nothing ever happens. And then, because you may say, well, that is because your idea wasn't so good. Well, look what happens next.
They don't act on it. They don't acknowledge it. It feels like they hardly even consider the idea at all. And then maybe another time, maybe a little bit later, someone else suggests exactly the same idea. And all of a sudden people are like, yeah, that's great. Let's do that.
I repeat, essentially the story of my entire life. I have ideas because I have the habit of spending hours, days, weeks, months, years, and even decades thinking about ideas. And when I share it with people around me, they are just like, well, uh, what else? Well, uh, nothing happens. Nothing ever happens. And then somebody else, for instance, Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or whoever, does the same thing, and oh, what a wonderful idea. And if somebody of my environment says the same idea, it is the same thing. That's why I know that my ideas are not that bad, because anybody can come to me and say, well, if nobody ever acknowledge your ideas, it's because your ideas are bad. But the thing is that then later somebody else comes with the same ideas and everything goes perfect. So that is what happens with me all my life.
So the quintessential example of this for me goes back to primary school, and it might be something like, hey guys, why don't we have a game of basketball? And everyone just sort of doesn't really respond, sort of looks around, looks at each other. And what they're doing is, because I'm not the leader, they're looking towards the natural leader. They're looking towards their peers to see, does everyone else think this is a good idea or not? The weird kid over there has suggested something, and I don't want to put my hand up and say, yes, that's a good idea, until I'm sure that everyone else also thinks that's a good idea. Conversely, when what I would call the natural leader of the group mentions something, people know that if that person says something's a good idea, it's likely that everyone else is also going to agree. So it's safe to say, yes, I agree, that's a good idea.
In my case, it started happening, for instance, when I was a teenager and we were in this group of teenagers looking for a place to dance, for a party. And there were several houses, because in that time, in the middle of the 80s, middle end of the 80s, in my country it was usual to have parties at home. And there were several places to go, and the natural leader says, let's go this place. And I said, no, that is not a good idea. Better let's go this other place. And everybody, no. So we used to walk 2, 3, 4 kilometers, because it was walking, uh, and nothing. And everybody then realizes that my idea was good. Sometimes we moved from that place to the place where I say and what I said, and it was great. Sometimes we stay there, and the next day, oh, why didn't you go to that place? It was awesome. Eventually, everybody started uh, to join the dots and say, hey, every time this guy says that we should go this place, he's right. So eventually, even though I wasn't the natural leader, eventually people started realizing, my mates, that I used to have a good eye on parties, and I used to have a good sense of where we should go. And well, and it was well. Unfortunately for me, I went out to study in university to another province, and I were there for 3 years. I was there for 3 years, and when I came back, everybody, everything was different. So I lost that group that realized after months that my ideas were good. And so even though I wasn't the natural leader of the group, they used to do what I said, because they acknowledged, with time they could tell that I used to be right.
And so in that sense, being
The same thing happened in other things, but that was a very clear example.
there's a good reason why being autistic means you're probably not a natural born leader.
You know, when most of the things of my youth happened, autism wasn't a word in my vocabulary. I never ever think about me or anybody else as autistic. Now I know that I am autistic, and that even my father, who dropped high school at third year when he was 15 years old, but he was an autistic person, or at least an Asperger person. And it is this way. We are not natural leaders. People look at us as the weird guy who is always talking about something that nobody understands, and talking about the distant past or the distant future or the distant faraway places that nobody cares. The autistic person is that is the one who is never talking about the things that everybody else is talking. If this guy is male, he would never talk about ladies and about things that are related with ladies or with sports or with whatever. And if she's a woman, she would never be talking about makeup or about dresses or about pop stars or whatever. So we are the weird people in the group. Mostly we are the weird person in the group because we are the only weird person in the group, and that's why we are weird.
And this is because very often the things that I do are not the kind of things that other people want to do.
Yes, the story of my life, the story of my entire life. That's why I am not a natural leader, because I do what others people don't want to do, and I don't do what others people likes to do.
Or even more specifically, it's not the kind of things that other people want to follow. So, for example, if we're all sitting down in a group, sometimes I might get up and walk around or do my own thing. You don't want to follow the guy who's doing his own thing, right? Because why would you do that? Most people want to follow what is safe to do in the group, what is everyone else doing. Whereas the leader of the group is likely to do something that other...
Well, the typical... Anyway, I don't care if I am not a leader, and I will never be a leader. I want to start a movement, but I just want to be the creator of this movement. I don't want to be the leader. I already said several times that I am anti-personalistic. I don't
something
want
that other...
to create a group that dies after I die, or that gets transformed into something completely different when I am not, when I be not around anymore. Either because I abandon the group, or either because I die. That's why I want leaders that guide people and tell them, look, this guy is telling things with sense. He's a little bit weird, but he's right. That is what I want. And I want 64K leaders, meaning 65,536 leaders before I found the movement, because I don't want to rely only on a tiny group of leaders. No, I want many leaders of all the backgrounds in humanity, all the continents, all the circumstances, the rich, the poor, the middle class, the educated, the uneducated, the black, the white, the brown, the whatever, in what the world calls America, in Europe, Asia, Africa, Oceania, everywhere. I want leaders from those places, and I want them to know, I want them to watch my videos. I don't need for the regular people to watch my videos, because they will think, oh, what a weird guy, I can't understand a word of what he's saying. I know that. I'm not a leader. I am a weird Asperger person or autistic person, and I know I will never be a natural leader. Okay?
People are also going to want to do, which means if the leader does something new and different, you're like, oh, well, why don't I do that too?
Yes, the same thing. I want the leaders to do things for other people to say, oh, look at him or look at her. He, her, she is doing that thing. I want to do the same thing. Because people is that way. Don't fool ourselves, right? If the leader does something, everybody else will follow the leader. If the weird guy with good ideas that nobody understands does something, it's irrelevant for society.
I'll be one of the first followers. People will then come and do the same thing as well, and I'll be cool and I'll be popular and whatever. Everyone's happy. I know this is I'm getting a little bit into my special interest of emotional intelligence and behavior here.
Yeah, emotional intelligence. I also want to say that I lack emotional intelligence. So that is another obstacle in me being the guider of this movement. No, I'm not only a natural leader, I am also not good on emotional intelligence, okay?
And clearly, I've been studying this for a very, very long time, both professionally and just in my own life. And this insight really helped me understand, like, because I used to think it wasn't fair. I used to think that the quality of the idea was all that mattered. And it was really unfair that when I came up with a good idea, no one listened. And when someone else suggested the same idea, it actually happened.
Yeah, the story of my life. I also thought that the important thing was the quality of the idea, not who is telling the idea, who is proposing the idea. And yes, it was really unfair when I had an idea and nobody listens, and when somebody else came with basically the same idea and everybody says, "Yeah, let's do it." And I thought, well, what is this? It was really unfair. Now I understand that I this is better for my movement, because instead of trying to appease billions of people, I will just need to be in contact with some thousands only.
Whereas I find now having an understanding of what the difference is and why people don't naturally follow me helps me to not be quite so angry at the world for that, because it felt like a massive injustice.
Yes, in my case, I also was angry, but more than angry, I thought, how will I be able to create a manless world and all my ideas? How will I achieve all my ideas if I am not a good leader? Until finally I understood that minds born to be leaders or to be followers uh, basically are specialized on different things than to have good ideas. And minds specialized on having good ideas are not specialized on being leaders.
Because I was having these good ideas and no one was doing anything about it. So that's interesting. There's actually another way. So if we are not natural born leaders, what are we? And another explanation is that our ideas are often so ahead of their time that the people around us just don't get them yet. I had the
Dreaming of a career in computer science? The first step
privilege of having a chat to Judy Singer just recently, and she was talking about neurodiversity, right, in 1990. I saw a meme on Facebook the other day. The year 2050 is as far away as 1990, right? That was 30 years ago now. And you'd think we'd come a long way since then. And we have nowadays, we talk about neurodiversity a lot. But 30 years ago, she was well ahead of her time, probably 30 years ahead of her time. And if you took out that thesis now and started reading it, you go, oh, yeah, yep, that's a good explanation of what neurodiversity is. However, people who are decades or even more ahead of their time have a lot of trouble finding other people around them who understand their idea enough and understand the implications of the idea and how good is this idea enough to actually want to follow.
In my case, as I said, and if you watched my previous videos, you will know that I am making predictions of 2000 years ahead in the future. Those are my predictions in the long run, and in the short run, I am making predictions for the next 80 years and even 30 years. So yes, essentially, I am making predictions and saying what the world will be, and that's why we need a Malidas world. And when the pandemic came and all the craziness of the pandemic came, I thought, wow, why wasn't I making videos about my ideas? If I would do if I would have done videos about my ideas now with this pandemic madness, I will be revindicated. But since I was afraid of a lot of things and I didn't do any video, I now I had no chance of saying, look, that's why we need a manless world, because the money world is madness. It is 1984.
There's something called an innovation curve, which many of you have seen. I wonder if you can see this. It's almost like I'm so far out here that I've got this idea before anyone else, like decades before anyone else, and of course no one else thinks it's a good idea yet because they don't know what it is. And then eventually more and more people catch on, and then eventually it becomes mainstream, and then all of a sudden everyone's doing it and it's a trend, and then So if we are not leaders, and I don't want to generalize, right? Maybe some of you are, maybe some of us are. If we're not leaders, what a lot of autistic people are innovators. So this is something good to remember, because we're not all born to be leaders.
That sounds good to me. I think I am an innovator, and I always thought about myself as a prophet and as a visionary person, but never as a leader.
But if you are an innovator, you have something very valuable to give to the world, and you're the kind of person that people will look back and eventually realize how good your idea was.
Well, about that, I am completely sure that centuries in the future, even millennium in the future or millennia in the future, people will say, "Oh, look at this guy in 2023 saying these things that were the future of humanity." And he was saying it, and since he came from underdeveloped country and he was a weird guy, nobody listens to him, and he had no followers and no views, and nobody talked about him, and nobody talked to him, and he had no comments, and he had no likes, and he had nothing. And I don't care, because I am not making these videos for the people of today. I am making these videos for the people of tomorrow. That's why I don't say like and subscribe. I don't care about that.
When it gets going, and when people can finally see the result of your innovation. So that's why people and companies and anyone that invests, for lack of a better word, in cultivating autistic people, in making sure that we're included in society, that's why it's a good idea to make the world more autism friendly, so that we can give our contribution to society. Because as I mentioned, we're unlikely to be the ones out the front leading the charge of masses of people, right? That requires popularity, that requires understanding exactly what the majority of people think and feel. And the majority of people think and feel things that are significantly different to what I think and feel. So if I assume someone else is going to react the same as me, I'm probably going to be wrong. And on a big scale, that's often the case. So I found this insight for myself really helpful, that I'm not trying to do that. Instead, my ideas are innovative. My ideas are going to resonate with a small group of people, and we are going to start slowly attracting more and more attention, and the world is going to change eventually. We're not bashing our head against a brick wall. We're just at the very, 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 very start of this exponential curve that will take off later. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Anyway, if not, bad luck. You've already watched the video. Okay, hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you again another time. Bye.
Perfect. Well, that is essentially what happens to me. Tomorrow I will explain you what is the changes that have happened to my life. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.